I'm happy that today too I've met you on this channel, Biblical Research and Innovation Network for Africa, Brain for Africa or Brain for. One of the most difficult doctrines in Christian theology is the doctrine of the Trinity of God. The question that we keep asking is, how can God be three persons and yet be one God? In a series of videos, I will attempt to provide answers to this question. In this video, I'll first consider what the doctrine of the Trinity is. Then I'll consider some misconceptions or false teachings about this doctrine and continue with some analogies about this doctrine. The doctrine of the Trinity comprises three key statements, and all the three key statements must be held together in order to define what the Trinity is. And so I would like to outline these three statements or these three assertions. Number one, God exists in three distinct persons who are referred to as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So this means that the Father is not the Son. The Father is not the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is not the Son. The Son is not the Holy Spirit in terms of their personality. So when it comes to the personality of God, the Father is not the Son, neither is the Son the Holy Spirit, nor the Holy Spirit the Father. So we have three distinct persons. And personhood with regards to the doctrine of the Trinity refers to a center of consciousness. That is, an entity who is a being and is able to distinguish between himself and others, referring to himself as I and referring to others as you. That center of consciousness is what is referred to as personhood with regards to the doctrine of the Trinity. So the first statement simply means that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three distinct persons in the Godhead. The second statement is this: each of these persons is fully God. So the Father is fully God, the Son is fully God, and the Holy Spirit is also fully God. And the third statement is that there is one God. So let me quickly say it again. Number one, God exists in three distinct persons. Number two, each of these three distinct persons is fully God. And number three, there is only one God. When we put the three statements that I've mentioned together, we may have the diagram on the screen, where we see the Father not being the Son not being the Holy Spirit, the Father not being the Holy Spirit. Yet the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is also God. So that is how we can represent what I've said in a diagram, where we have the Father not being the Son not being the Holy Spirit, and so on. We are talking about the personality of God. God exists in three distinct persons, where we have the Father being God, the Son being God, the Holy Spirit being God. We are talking about the essence of God. And the essence of God simply means what makes God God. What is it that God has that makes him God? So essence has to do with what ontologically makes God God. I don't want to say what defines God, because we cannot define God. What is it that characterizes God? What are the attributes of God? These are the things that will go into the essence of God. So the point is that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, each of them has what it takes to be God. They have what characterizes God. And so none of them lacks anything that makes God God. However, when it comes to their personality, they exist distinctively. So as you can see on your screen, that is what the diagram is trying to communicate to us. Having said this, let's look at some misconceptions or false teachings about the doctrine of the Trinity. I would like to outline at least about 5 of them as follows. The first is known as modalism. Modalism is the belief that God exists in one person, but he has shown himself to us or manifested himself to humanity in 3 different modes. That is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so those who follow modalism would argue that God manifested himself as the Father in the Old Testament. Then in the New Testament, the same person came to us as the Son. Then, after the death of the Son and the ascension, the same person came to us in the form of the Holy Spirit. And so God exists in one person, but he has manifested himself to humanity in 3 different modes. This is what is known as modalism. Modalism cannot be accepted as a true teaching about the Trinity of God, because it undermines the distinct personality of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Another false view about the Trinity is Trinityism. Trinityism is the belief in 3 different gods. Some people argue that if the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is also God, as the doctrine of Trinity teaches, then there are 3 different gods. This is known as Trinityism, and this is also not correct when it comes to the Christian doctrine of the Trinity. Trinityism undermines the fact that there is only one God, and so cannot be accepted as an orthodox teaching. The third misconception or the third false teaching about the doctrine of the Trinity is known as subordinationism. Subordinationism refers to the view that the Son and the Holy Spirit are subordinate to the Father. This is not correct because it undermines the co-equality of the Son and the Holy Spirit with the Father. The Son and the Holy Spirit are co-equal with the Father, and so this view is also false. Then we have partialism, which refers to the idea that the Father is part of God, the Son is part of God, the Holy Spirit is part of God, such that it is only when we combine the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit that we get full God. That means that the essence of the Father, or the Godhood of the Father, if I should use that word, is 1/3 of God. Then the Son is also 1/3 of God, and the Holy Spirit is 1/3 of God. So when you put the 3 together, then you get the totality of God. That also is wrong, because the doctrine of Trinity says that each of these persons is fully God. The last false teaching about the Trinity is Arianism. And Arianism is the idea that the Son was created by the Father, and so the Son is a created being. The orthodox teaching about the Trinity will reject this and say that the Son is uncreated. The Son is not a creature, but he is the creator, and so that cannot also be accepted. These 5 false teachings and others need to be avoided if we really want to consider the doctrine of the Trinity. There are a number of analogies that people have developed in explaining the doctrine of the Trinity. I would like to outline some of them and show why they are inaccurate or imperfect. However, one may use them to some extent even though they have their limitations. One of such analogies is the analogy of the egg. The egg has 3 parts. It has the shell, it has the albumen, that is the egg white, then it has the yolk. The three come together to form the egg. And so some people have thought of the Trinity that way. However, this analogy, like other analogies, is imperfect in the sense that if you take the cell, or if you take the albumin, or if you take the yolk, none of them can stand on its own and be considered as the egg in totality. I've already said that the Son is fully God, the Father is fully God, and the Holy Spirit is fully God. Therefore, unlike the egg, where you need to put all the three parts together before getting the egg, in the case of the Trinity, each person of the Godhead is fully God, and so that analogy has some limitations. Another analogy is the existence of water in three different states of matter, which includes solid, liquid, and gas. So people say that water exists in three different forms, in a way that is similar to the existence of God in three distinct persons. Here too, we have some limitations. The limitation is that if you take water vapor, that is water existing in the gaseous state, we cannot classify that as water. It is vapor, it is not water. So when you take that state, it is not equal to water. Again, if you take iced block, it is also not water unless it melts. So water is actually the liquid form. Except in the liquid form, the others cannot be considered as water in the strict sense of the word water. They can be considered as product of water, or water which has been transformed into something else. But that is not the same as the Trinity. It is not God the Father who transformed himself into another person. So this one probably will follow modalism, where water, which is liquid, now comes to us in the form of a solid, then later comes to us in the form of a gas. So it agrees more with the concept of modalism rather than the concept of the Trinity, where the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit will have to exist distinctively at the same time, without one transforming into the other person. The analogy of the components of the human person as body, spirit, and soul has also been considered as a way of explaining the doctrine of the Trinity. But again, here we realize that if you pick the soul alone, it is not a human being on its own. If we take the spirit, it is not a human being on its own. The three will have to come together before we can say that we have a complete human being. Let me say at this point that there is a theological debate as to whether human beings are made up of three components, body, spirit, and soul, or they are made up of two components, that is, body and spirit or soul. That is not what I'm here to talk about. And so I assume the trichotomy view of the human person without admitting it or rejecting it. In another video, I'll be considering that issue. So we see that none of these analogies is perfect. They have their own limitations. And so one may not consider them as tools that can help us to completely understand the doctrine of the Trinity. Yet they may help in a way. Before I conclude this video, let me ask you, is the doctrine of the Trinity contradictory? Is it contradictory to say that God exists in three persons and yet we have one God? Now, in order to answer this question, we need to consider what the law of non-contradiction is. It states, something cannot be and not be at the same time. Something cannot be and not be at the same time. What it means is that we cannot say that A is not equal to A. Let me use this to explain. If I say that I eat banku and I say that I don't eat banku, the starting point is the same I and the end point is banku. In one statement, I said I eat banku, and in another sentence, I said I do not eat banku. This will definitely contradict, because at the end of the day, it is the same I here, banku there, and so I cannot say I eat and I don't eat the same banku, I to banku. When it happens that way, then it has become something that I said can be, and now I say cannot be. The same beginning and the same end point. But now let's consider this. If I say I eat banku and I say I don't eat fufu, in that case, it is the same I to banku and the same I to fufu. The end point, banku and fufu, are different. So in one statement, I eat banku and I don't eat fufu, because the end points are different. Even though one statement is positive and the other is negative, that is, I eat and I don't eat, these two statements don't contradict. How do we apply this to the doctrine of the Trinity? This is how we do it. God exists in three persons. God has one essence. God is three in person. God is one in essence. So the first part is God is three with respect to personhood. The second one is God is one with respect to essence. If the statement had been God exists in three persons and God exists in one person, that would have been contradictory. But God is three in one dimension and he is one in another dimension. The two dimensions are different. That is where we had banku and fufu. The way in which God is three is different from the way in which God is one. So the two statements do not contradict at all. If God were to be one and three with respect to the same thing, God is one, God is three with respect to his essence, or God is one, God is three with respect to his personhood, that would have been a contradiction. But God is three in one sense, that is in his personhood, and God is one in his essence. Essence being what makes God God. So the two are different directions, and so one can be three, the other can be one, and yet they will not contradict. I believe that this has given you a good orientation and introduction to the doctrine of the Trinity. In other videos to follow, I'll unpack the whole idea of the doctrine of Trinity, and I believe that at the end of the day, I'll be able to throw light on some of the difficult areas that you might have. If you have not subscribed to the channel, I do encourage you to subscribe and to hit the notification bell so that you have notifications when new videos are uploaded. God richly bless you.